Yo, what's going on YouTube? Dirty Dan Gaming coming back with another Rise of Kingdoms video. And today we're going to be talking a little bit of Siege. We've recently had the release of Afonso de Albuquerque. And since I am no expert on Siege commanders, I decided to reach out to my good buddy in 93X, Patriarch Zook. We're going to go through today and kind of walk through a little bit of his account and how he is set up as a Siege player, and actually a player who transitioned into a Siege main. And we'll talk a little bit about Alfonso de Albuquerque, the newest Siege commander, and then we'll also give you guys some tips and tricks if you're looking to develop a Siege March and if you're looking to become a Siege player yourself. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, guys, so I'm here with my buddy from 93X, Patriarch Zook. He is one of, I believe, 4 or 5 Siege mains in 1093 now, and I thought that this was a great time to get some of the Siege players involved. We just had the release of Afonso, and then obviously we're kind of going into a little bit of a farming KVK, which Siege are exceptional at. So kind of worked out that way in a way. I know I'm a little late on the Afonso release, but Mr. Zook, how are we doing today? How are you?
Hey, doing fantastic. Thank you for having me. Hope you're having a good one too.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So we'll just do like a little brief intro, I guess, so the community can kind of get to know you a bit. So how long have you been in 1093, and also how long have you been a Siege main for?
Oh, great. Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, how long I've been here, and I think it's been now 5 years. It was,
Wow, holy crap.
yeah, it was the summer of COVID, right? That's where it feels like it's such an anchor to figuring out timelines. But that's where I migrated over. It was like the end of summer or somewhere in that in 2020. Came over with a fairly decent sized group, and sad to say, I'm the only one who's still playing out of that group.
Cool. So 5 years in 1093. So that means that you were actually not a Siege main for the entirety of the game. So how long have you been a Siege main, and what kind of made you kind of transition into being more of a Siege oriented player?
Mhm. Truth be told, I feel like I was always a glutton for punishment, and I started out as an archer main. That
Okay.
was kind of like my goal. And those who may or may not remember, archers were in a really rough place for a very long time. But, I kind of felt like if I made a gamble on that things would be work out in my favor, and maybe something would good come of it. And I thought, it was unique. Who else is doing this? And so I was an archer main for quite a while.
Mhm.
And then a couple years ago, I think it was, yeah, last year, I kind of pushed more into the siege area. Tried trying it out in some of the KVKs. Got a lot of ridicule, if you will, from some of the folks in '93. And then really enjoyed it. And so I moved all in after that. That was
Wow.
last summer. Well, it was last year.
Okay. So it's been like about a year since you like really made the hard commitment onto it.
Year and a half, I'd say. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. What do your lineups look like? Want to pop
Yeah.
those on screen?
I'll pop them open. Yeah. I mean, I'm right now. Let's just hit the engineering. You don't need to see the rest of them because nobody cares about that. Um, yeah. So I run three siege uh, marches right now, but I'm working on the fourth. And when I say working, it's just me being slow because I have too many sculpts and just don't like spending them. I like to
Yeah,
see those numbers go up.
that's fair.
But I'm going to finish out my fourth here, and I do have a fourth set of gear as well ready. So I actually run Gonzalo with his best pair, which is Gaja,
Okay.
and I run unusual for a lot of players. I run him primary,
Interesting.
and we'll run into. I'll get into the reason why. It's because of the accessories, because of that plume. Uh,
Yes.
and so that's definitely my best performing pair. I run John with Steven
Okay.
as my second pair. They really are made for each other. And then lastly, like you mentioned, the first pairing, Margaret and Bobber. And then my plan here is I'm going to end up running Alfonso with Archimedes and
Okay.
test around on which will be primary.
Hmm.
Little undecided on that fact yet, so we'll see.
Cool. So, would you actually mind highlighting some of your gear real quick on each of the pairings? That would be kind of cool for people to see, I think.
Sure thing. So admittedly, I have no primary gear crit, so I've had 4 sets of uncrit gear with
I know
Siege.
I know the feeling, brother. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah. Uh, the good thing is I now know, of course, that all the next set I make will be fully crit, so I guess I got that going for me. But Gonzalo really was always the best performing single commander in the siege world, and
Hmm.
so he has my best gear. I have a few of it iconic leveled up, but mostly right. I got single uncrit set for him. I did fortunately get a couple of crit on the accessories, and so he's got the top there. I do have the plume, which I think is mildly controversial. I think a lot of people don't typically
Yep.
advocate for that. They're very much fans of trying to maximize rage gain,
Hmm.
and so we can talk about that a bit later. But John, and you might see it, they're missing accessories just because I'm messing around in some of the other modes. I don't
Okay.
necessarily have that on there, but I will run a horn on him as well.
Okay.
And then Margaret, she has the drum, and I was running the drum. I think why was I doing that? I think it was again, like a lot of people consider maximizing rage gain, and because I was running 3 marches, it made sense to have three running the
Three.
drum because it's going to
Yeah,
help in all the marches. Yeah, yeah,
that does make sense. Yeah. And then you said you had a fourth set that's kind of ready, and that'll be for your Afonso Archimedes.
Yep,
Okay.
that's the
Yes. Yeah. There
plan.
you go. Cool.
Yep. Probably going to do the same thing. Typical horn and ring is the go-to,
Hmm.
in my opinion. Right? I think that's what everybody runs on pretty much all their marches. But my plan actually is to make another plume. I think Alfonso, especially if I run him primary, would work well with a plume. I'm speculating, right? So,
Okay.
any other siege players out there who hear me talk about positive things with the plume might be cringing a bit, but hey, again, that's me. I'm biased. Like I said, I was an archer main for a long time, so maybe it's just me going against the grain.
The newest siege commander or engineering commander, I should say, now in the game, Zook. What are your thoughts on Alfonso?
He's kind of right along what I was expecting, truth be told, which was another AoE commander. I think for those who are always considering or reaching out, I get the question a lot. Hey, if I'm going to build one March, who should I build? And my answer was always going to be Cordoba and Gaja. And their smite, I think we all know the power of smite, but they also are AoE, and that's a big one.
Mm.
So Alfonso comes along and he's doing AoE as well. But instead of smite, it's back to skill damage. And this is personally what I was looking for. I was happy to see this. It's right. We all know the power of AOE hitting multiple troops. That's kind of where your key of getting those really nice reports are at. So he's right along what I wanted to see. I like the damage a lot. I think that's a good one. I also like to see on this. Siege players, anybody who's running a tower, they know if you're in melee range, you're kind of in trouble. But it's good to see that some of the commanders have at least some way of dealing with being in melee. Um, in the big fights we get into, there is a lot of trust. You kind of trust your teammates, your allies, to kind of either somewhat protect you or react when they're trying to dive you. And so when we see these kind of commanders like this, like Cordoba, who has an advantage in melee or at least some moderate defense in melee, that can help you live a little longer, even if you're getting hit in melee, to survive and keep shooting. Right. So it's all about continuing to fire. Stats wise, pretty typical. 20% march speed, that's a lot. That's a lot, I think, but it's also important to know that siege are pretty dang slow to begin with. So that's pretty typical. That's good to see. I like the health and attack bonus when you're kind of looking at a 35% on a single skill stat bonus. That's phenomenal. You
Mhm.
tack on another 20% march speed. Wow. Um, Stacking damage. That's another really like to see that. We saw something similar in the last set of commanders that came out. When you look at Steven, he has a continuous attack bonus the longer he's in combat. And the interesting thing to kind of point out here is for a lot of players who are considering Siege to kind of AFK or just kind of away fighting, which I think a number of players do that, they set their towers up, they let them fire, and then they're microing their melee. The thing is with Siege, though, they will regularly fall out of combat because if the target they're shooting at dies, it pretty much clears combat. Unlike when you're in melee, you kind of have that grace period, right? Where you're still in combat, your rage hasn't reset. When you're using ranged combat, that's not something you have working for you. As soon as your target dies, you immediately end combat, your rage clears, buffs are gone.
Wow.
So things like things like Steven's buff, where he's gaining a stacking attack over time, and I think like Alfonso, he's getting skill damage over time the longer you fight, right? That's something to consider if you're like maybe thinking about what combat troop you're looking to field, what siege you're looking to field. Folks like myself, like the aforementioned Phil or others who are running primary and maybe microing more of their siege, this is going to work out because that's one of the things we're always trying to do is how am I able to keep myself in combat, maximize the targets that I'm shooting, and maximize my buff stacks to make sure that my combat doesn't clear and I can do more damage. And then finally, we see a lot of siege engineering commanders have that damage on hit. I mean, that's for anybody who likes to play the cheeseburger game. You can't cheeseburger in as a tower because you have obviously the setup and teardown. But it is phenomenal. This is the sort of thing that can really help you out when people are. Um, it's not tower cheeseburgering, but there's a lot of people who will like to like fiddle with you. They'll run into your range, get shot, and then they'll run away, and so on. These
Yeah.
sort of things can kind of punish that, right?
Yeah.
Um, that being said, Siege in general plays if you don't get a skill cycle off, you're probably losing the trades.
Fair enough.
It's the skill cycle that can keep you above right those positive trade thresholds. In my experience, that's generally what I see.
Okay. And then I know you said that you wanted to pair him with Archimedes. Can you
Mhm.
maybe talk through that, and then maybe some other like ideal pairings that you think other Siege players can kind of work with?
Sure. Archimedes is my choice based upon fielding the rest of the commanders out there. Personally, though, if I were running, let's say, just two marches instead of how I'm actually planning to run four,
Hmm.
uh, Cordoba and Gaja, match made in heaven. They're the smite damage. Keep them together.
Yep.
Easy choice. But if I want to add Alfonso because again, I want to take advantage of that AoE. I would actually pair him with Steven.
Hmm. Okay.
He would be my go-to Steven primary and Alfonso secondary. And I've talked to a few people who've tested this out when they've tried a couple of the commanders, and Steven as primary I think is working better, partially because of the skill tree and the power you get out of that,
Mhm.
and also because Steven his healing is based upon him using his primary, debuffing the target, and then shooting it additionally. So if he is first in the skill cycle, that means you get your healing sooner, and that again helps with your trade ratios.
Yes.
He also does have, fortunately, a bonus to skill damage. We like to see that, and he has a chance to do additional range AoE damage whenever you're dealing skill damage. So that's kind of almost two-ish kind of AoE commanders on one pairing. So if I were to do two pairs right now, again, it would be my smite damage and then Steven with Alphonse.
Gotcha. Okay, that would make sense then.
Mhm.
Um,
Now I'm going with Archimedes because again, I need to figure out a fourth pair. I have to dive into the, I guess, the pre-season of Conquest commanders that they recently added, whom I believe Archimedes and Mary on their own are not an amazing set, just because again their power level is lower, right? Given that they're pre-season of Conquest commanders. That being said, it's my belief that running Archimedes is probably the better, just because of his buffs and some of his debuffs. His damage factor, it's okay, but his, I think the passive skill where he's going to take less damage purely overall, additionally less damage from infantry, cavalry, and archers, which is something Siege are already weak to, can help overcome the fact that that pairing doesn't have healing on their own. Every other siege damage or every other, excuse me, engineering pair has some form of healing, but Archimedes and Alfonso have no healing. Now you can kind of get through that with the defense tree. You can get some healing out of that, which is what I might do. Again, we'll figure it out. I have a lot of time to figure it out, considering we're in a farming KVK now.
yeah, yes, we do. I had one more question for you, Zook, before we start to kind of close this thing out. And I put this on the agenda specifically because I've seen the conversations in chats, in the discords, plume or no plume. As you kind of hinted before, it's a little controversial. You are a big believer in the plume. Can you give us some insights as to why you think that?
I am a big believer, and I assure you, it's not just because I crit the first time I made one, although that helped.
Yes,
Can
yeah, of
help.
course.
Yeah, caveat to that a little bit is I think that a lot of players in anything they're doing is they're trying to always ask and get the question answered. What is the best choice? And that can be tough, and we can wrap around our axle on what the best means, you know. And the best typically, right, in this game means how can I get the most kills?
Yep.
And it's
Pays.
like, is a little bit more rage by building a drum going to help me, or is a ring that's going to give me a chance to get 50% more damage for a couple seconds helpful, and so on and so forth. I like the plume, obviously. I'm biased towards it because I like how much it does trigger, and it does trigger right very frequently. It's a 50% chance. The downside and the reason why I run Cordoba primary is it has an internal cooldown, so you have to consider that.
Right.
On a lot of the commanders in engineering, for instance, like Margaret or Gaja, they're doing small damage over time. Every time they shoot, they can do a little bit of a little bit of either range skill or range smite damage. Right, that's going to be 300 for her, for the next 3 seconds. For Gaja, it's going to be similar for the next 5. So that's the thing to consider: is my plume going to get eaten up? That's why I run Cordova primary. He does AOE. It's the biggest damage on that march. So that's right, a 50% chance for me to hit almost 40% additional damage. That's enormous. I like that a lot. The other thing I like, especially if you're playing the long game and you're going to be putting additional iconic levels, is it has a unique set of accessory buffs compared to the rest. Every other accessory buff has the same set of bonuses, but the plume has ones better targeted for ranged troops. So the fourth level, right, you're getting damage to field troops as opposed to, right, most, which are giving you damage to rallied armies or garrisons. I'm not really
Okay.
shooting, typically, rallies, or he's certainly not going to be sitting in a garrison. Although I do shoot rallies, it could be fun. The other side is the level 5 bonus is even better as well. So Divine Smite, right? You're getting that 10% chance to get 10 or 13% more range normal or range skill damage, as opposed to, again, Divine Might, where it's not a 10% bonus, but it's half that. It's only 5%.
Hmm.
So I think that's an important thing also to consider if you're playing that long game. Can I sit back and mathematically prove that this is the better choice over something else? No. You mentioned Phil. Phil is a big, big, big advocate of maximizing rage gain. He's going to tell you pretty much every time, put horns and drums on your marches because that's going to be the best long term. And I don't think he's wrong. But I also don't think that choosing a plume is the wrong choice either,
Yeah,
or a ring, or anything else. I think the difference is probably not going to be so substantial that you have really hurt your account and really hurt your march. I think I was always say go with what you feel is right because I don't think there's really a very wrong choice.
I agree.
I guess unless you're building like the book that increases your counterattack damage, probably that's a bad choice.
Yeah. I'm with you too. I've always preached, like I did obviously like Commander guys like way back in the day, but like I've always been a big believer of like this is still at its core like an RPG. Like please, like do what you feel is right. And like I still to this day, like every KVK, I'm constantly switching my marches, like my commander pairings. Like eh, sometimes one commander pairing is not doing well, and I switch it up and it starts doing good. But last KVK it wasn't the same, so like you kind of do have to use your gut at a point. Like we are going to have like statistics and some other content creators who are really good at doing breakdowns and stuff like that, but at the end of the day if you see something that's working, kind of stick with it. And I can put myself in your shoes a little bit too, being a cav player, with combo being a thing, and we have the saddle of 1,000 blessings accessory and people debating if that's good or not. So I'm kind of right there with you, but definitely wanted to kind of pick your brain about it. I always thought it was quite the interesting point of contention that we had two really kind of dedicated Siege players who had not entirely different views, but when it came to the accessories, like you guys definitely have your own kind of play style and thought process behind that. So definitely wanted to kind of pick your brain on that. With that, Zook, do you have any like tips or recommendations to I guess up and coming people who want to either be a siege main
Mhm.
or just want to invest into a siege march to just get themselves going?
Certainly. So obviously, we all know getting the gold heads and whatever you need to unlock those skills and expertise to your commanders is going to be important. I don't really need to give you any tips on how to do that. Gear is obviously going to be the next most important thing that you consider. The good thing about gear is that there are a lot of choices, and if you've ever looked at other guides, you'll know that there are a lot of options out there. And the good thing in the siege world is the purple gear is very, very good. It's a great starting set to get that knights so and so set right for
Mhm.
your siege. Great, great stats on that. If you feel like you can't really afford that, because hey, that is a lot of purple material. There are also some blue sets that you can consider that are really gathering gear. So look at those as well. I wouldn't totally ignore those. For instance, right, these harvester breaches, that's 6% stats right there. And you just are using bone and probably got a million, a million blueprints anyway for that. So think about that. That's a good place to start as you kind of go up that path from right blue, ideally up to that legendary gear. Um, you're probably going to see good trades even if you don't have that legendary gear. And so, but definitely try to shoot for it because the other side that siege is a lot, whether you noticed it or not, the regular troop type is going to be 45, right? Level 45 equipment. But if you get into the siege stuff, it's going to be
That's right.
level 50. It's also level 50. So that
Huh.
set gear is level 50. So it is. That's why you see additional bonuses or additional stats than you might be used to if you're just looking at like cav gear or infantry gear. So that's something else to consider.
Never
So
noticed that.
so all of that, yeah, yeah. And so siege, and I think they did that from a design standpoint because siege are at a type disadvantage,
Yeah.
right? And so they have more stats available to them. The other thing, obviously, that's really important is going to be in armaments. And taking a look at armaments, Siege kind of got the real short end of the stick when it comes to some of the inscriptions on there. So the one thing I would definitely take a look at is when you're thinking about like the flag, Merciless is really, really, really disappointing. So if you're saving up your whatever those tokens are called, definitely skip the flag one for that. What you want to look at is what's fortunately out there is some of these bonuses towards V formation ballistics. That's a great one, right? That's going to give you 3% more damage when you're in ranged mode. So shoot for ballistics. That's super good. When you're over there on the scroll, loosed is okay. It's the same thing. There's a bonus for that V formation. But otherwise, shoot for skill damage, shoot for regular damage if you have your smite commanders. This is another one where Phil and I think, also disagree. I don't think he's a fan of sharpshooter. Again, I like it because it gives a boost, and as we know, that boosts are really, really, really good. So especially if you're running that smite commander, Cordoba and Gaja, that 5% boost in normal range damage is going to help you on kind of everything you're doing. But you pay the price by spending a little more rage. Otherwise, that's the suggestions in a nutshell I can give to you if you're trying to build.
What would you suggest for a player building one engineering march, commander wise?
It's funny you ask that right right now, because literally right before our call, I had somebody in the kingdom say, "Hey, I want to build one march. What should I go with?" I still think both from the approachability, because there's a lot of avenues of getting them, and I think they're going to have a very long-term high performance. I still feel like it's Cordoba and Gaja are the one march to go with.
Cool. I'm glad to know that I'm still on my ways to making the best single siege march. Awesome, Zook. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm gonna finish this off. I didn't tell you about this, but it's a little thing that I'm gonna try and do. I'm gonna do some rapid fire questions. Hope you're ready for these. These are just gonna be fun and playful. All right. So
okay.
First question: what is your favorite pizza topping?
Oh dang. Broccoli.
Broccoli. Wow, interesting. What a choice.
I wanted to be really weird. I don't know. I like broccoli and tomato is a great thing, but I don't think I've had it in a very long time.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Favorite music artist?
Modern or older?
Either, whichever one.
Whenever I'm mowing, I listen to Mazursky a lot.
Mazursky. Interesting. I don't think I've
Yeah,
ever
he's an
heard.
It's an old composer.
Ah, okay. Classic. I like it. And then lastly, what's your other favorite game to play outside of Rise of Kingdoms?
I play a lot of Paradox Paradox Interactives games. I like big map games like Hearts of Iron or Crusader Kings or Stellaris. I like a lot of those like grand strategy games.
Cool. Awesome. Maybe some things to look into for the off season for myself. So Zook, thank you again. It was a pleasure. And yeah, thank you, brother.
Oh, it was fun. Yeah, thanks.
All right, guys, that's all we got. Thank you again to Zook for coming on and talking a little bit of Siege. If you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit that like button down below and consider subscribing. It's all totally free. Helps the channel out a lot. With that, I'm out. Love y'all. See you on the next one. Later. Peace.